I'm Elisa Parenti in Washington, and you're watching Bloomberg Technology. Let's start with a check of your first word news. Donald Trump Jr. told Senate Judiciary staff that he didn't inform the president about the 2016 meeting Trump campaign members held with a Russian lawyer. That's according to a person with knowledge of what was said in today's staff interview. Trump Jr. also said he went along to gauge the fitness of Hillary Clinton. British, French, and Dutch rescuers are rushing aid to Caribbean islands after Hurricane Irma left at least 10 dead and thousands homeless. The monster storm is now tracing a course for a potentially catastrophic strike on Florida. Irma blew by Puerto Rico this morning, leaving thousands without running water or power. The Senate passed the aid bill for Hurricane Harvey. The $15.3 billion package is nearly twice as much as President Trump requested. It includes raising the debt ceiling for 3 months under a deal Democrats made with the president. 3 people familiar with the matter say the White House is considering at least 6 candidates on the growing list of nominees to succeed Fed Chair Janet Yellen after the Wall Street Journal reported Wednesday that President Trump is unlikely to choose his top economic advisor, Gary Cohn. Global news 24 hours a day, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Elisa Parenti. This is Bloomberg, and Bloomberg Technology is next.
And this is Bloomberg Technology. Coming up, Amazon's next big move. The house that Bezos built wants to set up another HQ in a new $5 billion project, big enough for as many as 50,000 employees. And each U.S. city has until the end of October to put in their bids. Plus, GoPro zooms after the action camera maker refreshes its outlook and product line. COO CJ Prober joins us to discuss keeping the ongoing turnaround on track and what could be the first profitable quarter since 2015. And a Bloomberg exclusive, 1 year after the biggest deal in tech history, we're taking stock. Dell founder and CEO Michael Dell joins us on a wide-ranging interview. We kick it off with asking for a status report on the $67 billion Dell EMC acquisition. But first, to our lead, Amazon is on the hunt for a second campus that it's calling HQ2, and it comes with a hefty price tag of more than $5 billion. The Seattle-based internet giant is asking local and state governments to submit proposals for its new headquarters that it says could house as many as 50,000 workers, many of them new hires, each with a possible yearly compensation exceeding $100,000. The economic impact for the winning city would be significant. Amazon said its investments in hometown Seattle from 2010 through 2016 resulted in an additional $38 billion to the city's economy. Joining me now to discuss this and more, Bloomberg Gadfly columnist Shira Ovide, as well as our Bloomberg Tech reporter Garrett DeVink. Garrett, I'll start with you. What do we know about this? Why did Amazon make this a public contest, and how many new hires will they actually be making?
They're going to be making 50,000 hires eventually. I mean, it's going to take a while. The number they gave was 15 to 17 years. So this is a almost 2-decade project that they unveiled today. It's pretty unusual when you look at how Amazon usually goes about building new offices and buying real estate. Usually they try to be very quiet about it. They go so far as to setting up, special tax structures to kind of shield the fact that they're looking at new places. And a lot of that is, when they go out to do warehouses and that kind of thing. But this is going to be a massive new campus. They went so far as to calling it another headquarters and saying that it will be at the same level as their current Seattle presence.
Now, in part, they're doing this because Seattle simply just can't accommodate their growth. But I find it interesting, given the frugality that is the history of Amazon. I mean, Brad Stone wrote in his book, The Everything Store, that employees even had to give back the backpacks when they left the building if they left the company. Shira, what do you make of how Amazon is approaching this process?
Well, I'll say one thing. I actually talked to a technology investor in Seattle today, Matt McElwain at Madrona, who said he was disappointed that Amazon didn't decide to simply expand its offices inside of their hometown and felt that it was sort of the fault of the city of Seattle for not being sort of business friendly enough to Seattle, to Amazon, the company had to go elsewhere. So I thought that was an interesting point, that maybe this is not a great thing for the city of Seattle, even as that city has struggled with the kind of housing crunch and real estate crunch that Amazon's expansion has caused there.
Garrett, you already have some cities throwing their names into the hat. Chicago, for example. Talk about where the likeliest places are if Amazon is going to split its headquarters in two, essentially. What does that mean for the city that gets that honor?
Yeah, we've probably got another couple cities, just since the beginning of this segment, that have thrown their names into the hat. I mean, you have people tripping over themselves to sort of get Amazon's attention, ranging from smaller cities, Louisville, Tucson, to, straight all the way to the top. Some of the biggest cities in North America, including Toronto, Chicago, are very interested. It's definitely going to be a bit of a Hunger Games process here. It's hard to underestimate how big of an impact this could have on the city that it ends up being in. I mean, just calling around, talking to people today, no one has seen anything this big. One massive company deciding all at once to put this many people, even though it is over many years, in one place. So, one number that I thought was particularly interesting was, we had someone estimating that Amazon could receive as high as $1 billion in, subsidies, in that kind of thing, to actually build in a certain city. So, we're going to see proposals coming out over the next few weeks and months, and it's going to be interesting to see what they are.
Shira, what do we know about what these new employees in this new headquarters are actually going to be doing?
Well, Amazon was a little bit vague about that. It basically said that they were going to leave it up to individual teams and managers to decide who works where. But these are going to be high-paying jobs. They were talking about annual salaries of $100,000 and up. And look, as Garrett said, every mayor, every politician in any city and state is going to want to take credit for bringing up to 50,000 high-paying jobs to his or her city, right? This is a no-brainer. But at what cost? And I think we've seen that debate increasing more and more in the last couple of years, including most recently in Wisconsin with this Foxconn plant that they're going to open to build kind of television displays and other things. And the state of Wisconsin is granting Foxconn something like $3 billion worth of tax and other kinds of incentives. And there's a legitimate question about whether the job creation is worth the lost tax revenue to these cities and states.
Meantime, Amazon is continuing to make some unique and somewhat unprecedented partnerships. They have partnered with Microsoft when it comes to their digital assistant so that Amazon Alexa can coordinate with Microsoft's Cortana. They're also now going to be opening physical Amazon stores inside Kohl's department stores, this on the back of the Whole Foods acquisition. Garrett, what do you make of this?
Yeah, well, I mean, there are obviously, there's always Amazon news pretty much every day these days. But, on the digital assistance or sort of artificial intelligence assistance front, I mean, Amazon can kind of be able to put themselves in that position because they have such a large lead when it comes to the Alexa device, compared to their competition coming out from Google and Apple. And the Microsoft Cortana assistant is, very popular on desktop. And so the way that Amazon is kind of seeing it is, they eventually feel that having these assistants being able to talk to each other is good for the consumer, and because they have the lead in the actual hardware, and on the App Store, they want to jump in and try to consolidate this market ahead of its competition.
All right, lots going on with Amazon. As always, Garrett DeVink and Shira Ovide, Bloomberg Technology, Bloomberg Gadfly, thank you both. Well, the Federal Emergency Management Agency saw its reserves cut in half over the weekend after the devastation caused by Hurricane Harvey, and now with Hurricane Irma. House Speaker Paul Ryan issued a dire warning for FEMA. Take a listen.
People on their smartphones are quickly applying for their FEMA relief, and those applications are being approved, and that money's going out the door at such a faster pace than we'd ever experienced before, to the point where OMB is telling us FEMA could run out of money as early as tomorrow and no later than Tuesday.
Senate Republicans agreed to more than double FEMA's funding to $15.25 billion, about twice the nearly $8 billion the House approved on Wednesday. Well, coming up, it is the one-year anniversary of the biggest tech deal in history. I sit down with Michael Dell for a report card on the company after the $67 billion acquisition of EMC. And Bloomberg Technology is live streaming on Twitter. Check us out at Bloomberg Tech TV, weekdays 5 p.m. in New York, 2 p.m. in San Francisco. This is Bloomberg. Now to a stock we are watching. Shares of Fitbit rose 11% in Thursday trading. That is the biggest move in over a month for the fitness tracking company. The pop in stock coming after Fitbit announced a partnership with glucose monitor company Dexcom to help those with diabetes monitor their blood sugar through Fitbit's iconic smartwatch. The move shows the company's efforts to venture beyond just fitness tracking into health tracking in general. And a year ago today, Dell completed its massive acquisition of EMC. The historic $67 billion deal created Dell Technologies, a company that operates everything from Dell and VMware, which is still publicly traded. Dell faced several major legal and regulatory hurdles, along with stockholder skepticism. But after a year, the company is reporting an increase in sales and gains in new customers. I sat down with Dell Technologies CEO Michael Dell for an exclusive interview and asked for the one-year report card.
I'm very pleased with how it's going. The reaction from customers and partners has been very strongly positive. Our teams are very engaged. Our customer NPS scores have continued to improve. Our employee engagement scores are record high levels. The revenue synergies are coming bigger and faster than we thought. You know, we're paying down debt at an aggressive pace. And so, you know, a lot of things that could have gone wrong didn't go wrong. And I'd say the biggest surprise we've had is we haven't had a lot of surprises. And certainly you see the success that, you know, VMware is one very important part of the Dell Technologies family is enjoying. But across the family, the business is doing very well.
So you mentioned debt. You took on $51 billion in debt. You took on a PC market that has been sluggish. How have you navigated those challenges?
Well, we've grown our share in PCs for 18 quarters in a row. I'll tell you, we're in our 19th quarter in a row of gaining share. You know, I think, look, people have at times questioned the durability of some of our businesses, but they've held up incredibly well, and we're gaining share. And so being able to navigate these transitions as we have and bringing the family together, customer partner reaction is very strong. You know, as VMware went out to, you know, get some debt to continue its growth and expansion, investment grade ratings from all three rating agencies. So, you know, the Dell Technologies business is quite strong.
Do you see more consolidation in the industry at large? I mean, we talk a lot about how the big players are already so big and getting bigger. Do you think that will continue?
I do. And the reason is that customers actually don't want to have a whole bunch of small companies that they work with, and there are deep technical reasons why these things should be more integrated. So if you think about what VMware is doing, you know, integrating networking and compute and virtualized storage and how you manage in a software-defined manner, that's very much consistent with what customers want. And it's really about how do you create a cloud environment, but in an on-premise fashion.
But how do you stay nimble and make sure you're innovating from within? Or is it about M&A?
It's not either or. It's both, and it's also the alliances and partnerships and the venture capital that we deploy in new companies. So, you know, we'll invest, you know, more than $4 billion, right, in R&D across the Dell Technologies family.
Where do you see yourselves in 5 years?
Well, look, what I see from our customers is that they're engaged in 4 transformations simultaneously. So it's a pretty exciting time in our world. The digital transformation. How do you use all this data that's being created with all these smart, intelligent sensors and nodes that are being created, the explosion in connected devices and this new age of human-machine interaction? That is a CEO board level agenda item in every company that we deal with. Okay, so that's the first one, the digital transformation. Then you have the IT transformation. How do I become more cloud-like, more software-defined? How do I modernize and automate my infrastructure to run that super efficiently in many ways so I can fund the digital transformation? Then you have the workforce transformation. How do I make sure that the people inside the company have the right tools so they can be productive and efficient? And it's not about giving them the lowest cost thing possible, but you know, I want to attract and retain the high quality workforce I have. People are figuring out productivity matters and the devices are important. And then the next one is, the last one is security. The attack surface is getting much greater, and we have a broad set of capabilities to help our customers defend and protect their most critical information and data. And look, business is about trust and assurance. And the sophisticated nature of the attacks is only increasing, and that's an incredibly important topic for our customers. So we're focused on those 4 big transformations. We think we're unique in the set of capabilities we bring across the whole spectrum, and that makes us highly relevant for customers. And that's why we're growing faster than the overall industry.
We'll have much more from my exclusive interview with Michael Dell, CEO of Dell Technologies, later in the show. Coming up, GoPro's turnaround plans are starting to pay off. We speak with Chief Operating Officer CJ Prober on the company's optimistic earnings outlook next. And a feature I want to bring to your attention, our interactive TV function. Find it at TV Go on the Bloomberg. You can watch us live. If you miss an interview, you can go back to it. You can send our producers a message, play along with the charts we bring you on air. This is for Bloomberg subscribers only. Check it out at TV Go. This is Bloomberg. SpaceX used its Falcon rocket Thursday to launch a super-secret Air Force shuttle. This ahead of Hurricane Irma's possible arrival at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. This is the 5th flight for the Air Force's crewless mini shuttle called the X-37B, which is capable of spending years in orbit. The Air Force is keeping a lid on what the shuttle will be doing, but its last mission lasted close to 2 years and touched back down in May. Keeping with tradition, SpaceX landed its leftover booster back at Cape Canaveral for eventual reuse. While shares of GoPro surged earlier in the trading session, the action camera maker said that third quarter revenue and margins would be at the high end of the company's forecast. GoPro is in the midst of a turnaround plan that includes cost cuts and an updated product line. Let's get straight to Bloomberg's Selena Wang, who's standing by with a special guest. Selena?
Thanks, Emily. Joining me now is GoPro's Chief Operating Officer, CJ Prober. CJ, thanks for joining us. So tell us, what's driving these positive results right now?
Hey, Selena. Thanks for having me. One of the things that wasn't mentioned in the preamble, and one of the things that we're most excited about our Q3 announcement, is that we're actually going to be profitable on a non-GAAP basis in Q3, which is a big development, in addition to the high end of the range on the revenue and the high end of the range on the margin. And really what's driving that's quite simple. The Hero 5 is the best product we've ever launched, and we're seeing really strong demand for it. In addition to the differentiation that we've enabled through Hero 5 in terms of voice control, waterproof with no housing, cloud connected, we now have a really amazing software ecosystem, which is super differentiated, and that it allows consumers to move their content from their cameras to their phone automatically. We create a video for the consumer automatically, and then they can tweak it to their heart's delight, or they can share it directly. And so that experience
so you've been talking about making the camera, the hardware, and the software easier to use, assuming you're trying to target a broader base of consumers. But the fundamental question remains, what is a value proposition to the average consumer that's perfectly happy with the camera on these ever-improving smartphones?
Yeah. If you look at the movement that's happening on platforms like Instagram and WeChat, and the amount of content creation that's happening, and if you look at the tip of the spear consumer on those platforms, the phone doesn't enable sufficient versatility, sufficient immersive capture. And so what we're really trying to do with GoPro is to free our consumers from the capture experience and let them live the moment, live the activity, capture that activity. And then on the other side of it, on the software side, we want the experience of sharing that content to be as easy as if you captured on the phone. So we're really freeing our consumers from capturing in the moment to living that moment and enjoying it, and then having the same convenience that you have today with your phone.
GoPro's projecting return to non-GAAP profitability in Q3. Should we expect to see a sustained return to profitability beyond the end of the year? And if so, how are you going to achieve that?
Yeah. So we set a stretch goal at the beginning of the year to be profitable on a non-GAAP basis for all of 2017. and we expect to achieve that. We also expect to achieve double-digit revenue growth this year. And as it relates to next year, we do expect to be profitable and more profitable in 2018. And the reason for that is we implemented a number of cost measures in March of this year, and it took several months to get those costs out of the system. So we're going to have the full year benefit of those cost savings next year with increased, with continued revenue growth, lower OPEX. We also expect to expand margins with the roadmap that we have. So we're expecting to deliver even better profitability in 2018.
The company is announcing positive news today, but the shares are still down almost a third over the year, and there are mostly sell and neutral ratings on the stock. So what are investors missing here?
Yeah. You know, I've been through a turnaround situation like this before, and the stock price always lags performance. We don't focus too much on the stock. It's our job to deliver amazing products for consumers. It's our job to deliver an amazing work environment for our employees, and it's our job to deliver against the expectations we set for our investors. And over the first quarter, the second quarter, and now the third quarter, in addition to meeting expectations for consumers and meeting expectations for employees, we're meeting expectations for our investors. So in a turnaround like this, it takes time for the stock and investors to follow, but we're confident that we're going to continue to execute and that will come over time.
Now, CJ, really quickly, you are at the Citi Global Tech Conference right now. What are the conversations like with investors? How is this different from previous years?
It's really quite different from 12 months ago. There's a recognition that GoPro has a very sound foundational business. And as we share our vision for the future and how GoPro can become this extension of the smartphone, an untethered lens to the smartphone, the discussion is really how big can that opportunity be? How much of the Instagram content share, the WeChat content share can GoPro capture? So the discussion is fundamentally shifted from, is the business sound, to yes, our core business is sound and profitable and growing, and now it's how big is the opportunity ahead of us.
Great. CJ Prober, COO of GoPro, thanks for joining us. Emily, back to you.
Thanks, Selena.
All right. Selena, thanks so much. Coming up, a dark day in the Magic Kingdom. Disney's stock takes a dive after some less than stellar news from the CEO. Bring you all the details next. This is Bloomberg.
I'm Mark Crumpton in New York. You're watching Bloomberg Technology. Let's begin with a check of first word news. British, French, and Dutch rescuers are rushing aid to a string of Caribbean islands after Hurricane Irma left at least 10 dead and thousands homeless.
I have made clear to them that these are our people, they're British nationals, and we're going to do everything possible to get help to them in this appalling devastation that the hurricane has caused, and to help in advance of the hurricane that's coming behind it.
Irma, the most potent Atlantic Ocean hurricane ever recorded, could slam into heavily populated South Florida early Sunday. House Speaker Paul Ryan says the deal President Trump cut with Democrats on spending and Harvey aid made sense with one devastating storm and another looming. Ryan said today the president didn't want to, quote, have some partisan fight in the middle of the response. The U.S. has awarded more contracts to build prototypes for the wall President Trump wants to build on the border with Mexico. Prototypes announced today by U.S. Customs and Border Protection are for 4 see-through walls. Last week, it announced contracts for prototypes for 4 concrete walls. The 8 prototypes will cost a total of $3.6 billion and will be built in San Diego. Spain's Constitutional Court reportedly has suspended the call for a referendum on Catalonia's independence. That's after accepting an appeal by central authorities in Madrid. Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy had said the government was challenging a bill meant to legitimize the independence vote and a decree by the regional Catalan government summoning voters for the October 1st ballot. Global news 24 hours a day, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. I'm Mark Crumpton. This is Bloomberg. It's just after 5:30 p.m. here in New York, 7:30 Friday morning in Sydney. My colleague Paul Allen has a look at the markets. Paul, good morning.
Good morning, Mark. Well, we have ASX futures about 0.25% higher for the last trading day of the week. Nikkei futures, however, traded out of Chicago just a little weaker at the moment. And we'll be keeping an eye on the US dollar Japanese yen cross rate today with a lot of data out of Japan. Balance of payments, current account and trade for July is expected to hold steady at $4.7 billion. GDP, though, for the second quarter expected to weaken to 2.9% annualized, reflecting a lower read on private capex. A lot of data out of China today as well. Trade is expected to improve by about $1.5 billion in August. Imports and exports both expected to slip, however, about 1%. Elsewhere, waiting on the trade balance out of Taiwan for August as well. I'm Paul Allen in Sydney. More from Bloomberg Technology next.
Now to more of our exclusive interview with Dell CEO and founder Michael Dell. His company's massive merger with EMC is based on an ethos of bigger is better. And since the deal was finalized a year ago, Michael Dell has assembled a team to help push back against the rising demand for cloud providers like Amazon and Microsoft. It's investing in new products and partnerships to woo dollars away from the encroaching rivals while also keeping traditional competitors like Hewlett-Packard Enterprise at bay. I asked Dell about this strategy and if his goal is to be the last and largest company left standing.
I think if you look at what's going on in the world, IT is actually shifting to BT, business technology, where you can't actually do anything without technology. You can't sell anything, you can't buy anything, you can't make anything, you can't have customer relationships, and this is true across organizations of all sizes and government and society. And so I actually see the overall market, when you consider the role technology is playing, getting much larger. So when I go visit the largest industrial companies or the automotive companies, manufacturing, retail, they're thinking about how they use data in a very different way. Applications are very important, but ultimately it's the data that drives a business. And when you start to layer on these, next generation computer science, the artificial intelligence, the machine learning, data is the fuel for that. We store more than half of the mission critical data in the world. And the amount of data is going to grow much, much more in the next 30 years than it has in the last 30 years. It's doubling at a faster and faster pace because of all these connected nodes.
Now, you're not fully private. VMware is still a public company. What's the long-term plan? Will you go fully private? Will you ever go public again?
We don't have any plans to change our structure. We're very happy with our privately controlled structure. We have 2 public companies in the group, and it's working quite well.
So we talked about M&A earlier. You said you were going to do a lot of M&A, but it's been fairly quiet. Why is that? Is it valuations? Are you not seeing anything you like out there?
We've done some M&A inside VMware, done a little bit in Dell EMC, and look, we'll continue to explore M&A. Our Dell Technologies Capital Group is investing in about 1 company a week in new businesses that we're finding that are out 36, 48 months into the future, working on new things. There's also I'd say a wicked consolidation going on in the existing parts of IT. And we're using our supply chain, our scale, our breadth, the portfolio effect, and innovation to drive that and gaining share in that core as well.
So would you be more likely to invest in hardware or services at this point when it comes to M&A?
If you look at the things we're investing in, it's artificial intelligence, machine intelligence, next generation processor architectures to enable those new computing models. It's cloud security, how do you enable the cloud native apps, those kinds of things. we're pretty good at hardware, right? And we're going to continue to grind away at making that more and more efficient, so companies can run their infrastructure in a super efficient manner. And look, we've got a massive innovation engine internally and with our partners to help make sure we continue to gain share.
So when you look at the competitive landscape, who can challenge Dell more than it has?
There's no shortage of competitors. I mean, we happen to be doing well relative to our competitors. I think the best way for us to plot our future is really to listen to our customers. If we're going around following our competitors, that's not really a great strategy.
HPE, is it still the rival it once was?
They're not doing so hot these days, and that's a better question for them. But I mean, we're clearly gaining share, and they're clearly losing share. And some of it is this portfolio effect. I think our innovation engine is on high. We've passed them in servers. We're far bigger than they are in storage. And look, customers ultimately will vote with their feet and their dollars, and they're voting for Dell Technologies.
In just a few moments, we'll have more of my exclusive interview with Michael Dell, CEO of Dell Technologies. You'll hear his thoughts about his meetings with President Trump. Well, Disney shares dropped nearly 5% today, posting their worst day since January 2016, after CEO Bob Iger said this year's earnings will be roughly in line with last year. Analysts had been predicting an earnings boost in 2017 of about 3%. Disney's under pressure to improve profit after failing to match the competitive threat posed by services like Netflix and after paying high fees for sports rights on ESPN. Joining me now to discuss, Bloomberg Intelligence's Director of North American Research, Paul Sweeney. Paul, Iger made these remarks at a conference in Beverly Hills. Put them into context for us. What were the big takeaways from your perspective?
Yeah, this was a big, the Bank of America Merrill Lynch media conference in L.A. today. A lot of news coming out of this conference, and that really caused the media stock sector to really underperform today, led by Disney and Comcast, another bellwether stock. But in case with Disney, as you suggested, the key issue for investors for the Walt Disney Company is the cable networks business, principally ESPN. And as we think about the cord cutting that we're seeing going on across the industry, the biggest loser pound for pound is ESPN, because ESPN gets about $7.50 per subscriber per month for ESPN. So, to the extent that they are losing subscribers as consumers cut the cord or go to skinny bundles, that impacts Disney in a very big way. And that's kind of what we're seeing. That's the headwind that the Walt Disney Company is dealing with really for the last year or two, and it's still impacting them here in this fiscal fourth quarter.
So talk to us a little bit about ESPN. Obviously, this has long been the crown jewel, but there have been some problems. What do you think is the real future of ESPN? Yeah,
Bob Iger today kind of, continued to outline some of the future initiatives for ESPN. The key issue is to take ESPN direct to consumers. Much like consumers can get Netflix directly over the internet, they don't need to subscribe to a big pay TV package. That is currently the distribution model for ESPN and other cable networks today. So all cable networks, including ESPN, really need to think about, can they go direct to consumers over the internet, and will consumers pay for this content, and how much will they pay? So just last quarter, several weeks ago, when they released their earnings, Disney did announce that they are going to bring an ESPN app to the marketplace next year. We don't know what it's going to be priced at. We don't know what content's really going to be on there. We didn't get much more news today. So investors feel like this is a move that Disney has to make. The question is, are they kind of too little, too late at this point?
There's been great fascination around the succession plan at Disney. Of course, Bob Iger decided to resign for a few more years. But after that, what do we know about who comes next?
That's a problem. We don't know a lot at all, because I don't think the Walt Disney Company nor its board of directors knows a lot right now. At least they haven't disclosed anything to the marketplace. We know that Bob Iger has 2 years left on his contract. He's kind of extended that a couple of times. The very well thought out succession plan that this company had over the last 7 or 8 years did not work out really at the last moment, which was a real problem for the company. So they're left kind of figuring out what's plan B here. Do they have any internal candidates? None appear to be really at the top of the list. So that suggests they may go outside of the company. And of course, you could argue that the Walt Disney Company is arguably the best CEO job out there, and there should be a lot of interest in it. The question is, can they get the right person to lead this company into a more technical world?
All right, Paul, I know you'll keep us honest. Paul Sweeney from Bloomberg Intelligence, thanks so much. Well, a major security breach has exposed the personal information of roughly half the U.S. population. The credit monitoring company Equifax late today said the breach exposed Social Security numbers and other data from a whopping 143 million Americans. Intruders access names, Social Security numbers, birth dates, addresses, and driver's license numbers. We'll keep you updated as that story develops. Coming up, the final part of my exclusive interview with Michael Dell. We discuss the relationship between Silicon Valley and the White House and why he's glad he had that meeting with President Trump. This is Bloomberg. Square is branching into banking. The fintech firm led by Jack Dorsey plans to submit an application on Thursday to form a wholly owned bank based out of Utah. The unit, dubbed Square Financial Services, will offer loans and deposit accounts to small businesses and be capitalized with $56 million in cash. That's according to the Wall Street Journal. The move by Square comes at a time when federal regulators are giving their blessing to startup banks after the clampdown on new banks following the financial crisis. Well, President Trump has stirred controversy with business leaders across the country. But Michael Dell says he's glad he interacted with the White House and that it's important to have a seat at the table. In my exclusive interview with Dell Technologies CEO, I asked him about the rift between Silicon Valley and the White House. Take a listen.
I think it's important for us to have a voice and to be able to speak our minds, whether we agree or disagree. And fortunately, they usually listen to us, and that's a good thing for us to be able to go and express our opinions.
So you were on one of President Trump's business councils before it dissolved, which was, following his remarks after the Charlottesville protests. I'm curious what was going through your mind as that was all unfolding.
Well, as a Jewish American, I was horrified to see people marching in the streets with Nazi flags. How could you not be? Mm-hmm. And look, I mean, we've built our company as a place where anyone was welcome and anyone could succeed. Mm-hmm. And I think the hate and anger that exists in the world, whether it's in Charlottesville or Barcelona or any of the terrors around the world, this is not the answer to the challenges that exist in the future. So absolutely horrified to see that.
So I'm sure you faced your own moral dilemma when you were wondering how you should respond. Why did you remain on the council rather than when others were leaving, right?
Well, look, a lot of discussion among CEOs. We were calling each other. What do we do? What's going to happen? How do we talk about this with our people in terms of not specific to a council or anything like that, but how can we be a constructive force given this hate that's out there? And, as we were having that conversation, the president decided to dissolve the councils. And look, I mean, we as I said, have a responsibility to our people, and I think, and to the world. I think we can be a positive voice for change and progress in the world.
So is that a moral responsibility? Where does that responsibility end? As a business leader, where does that start and where does that stop?
Look, I think when you're successful and you've been given opportunity, there's a responsibility that comes with that. And I've been very blessed and fortunate to have many opportunities, and I think I'm pretty proud of what we've done in terms of our company, what my wife and I have done with our family foundation.
So when it comes to the policy issues, whether it's tax reform or immigration, what are you hoping to see from this president?
Well, we were very vocal in speaking up against the border tax, the border adjustment tax. We thought that was a very bad idea. And, for all the folks that said, oh, you shouldn't have gone and met with the president. Well, I'm glad I went and met with the president because I told him I thought it was a really bad idea, and it seems to have died. Right now, whether that was because I spoke up was a really bad, probably because it was a really bad idea. Doesn't matter. We're going to continue to go and speak up no matter who is in charge, because I think that's our responsibility.
Do you have any concerns about the political uncertainty leading to market uncertainty, leading to economic uncertainty?
I think a reflection on that is, wow, it's pretty amazing how well the American economy is doing, given that things aren't altogether working as well as they possibly could, right? And when you look across the world and you say, what economy is doing better than the United States? Where would you rather invest than the United States? So we've got a lot going for us, even though there's some opportunities to do better.
Michael Dell there, CEO of Dell Technologies. Coming up, the story behind China's top dating app for the LGBT community and how it's providing a platform for users to overcome oppression. This is Bloomberg. Bloomberg's new series, Love Disrupted, explores how technology is changing the way you find love in Asia. One example is an internet company, Blue City, a top player in China's LGBT market. Bloomberg explores how its social networking app, Blued, is changing the way gay men live their lives in China.
Ma Baoli, better known as Gang La, is one of the 4 grand marshals leading New York's Pride Parade this year. But in the country he comes from, being gay is still a social taboo. The CEO of a Beijing-based internet company is on a mission to improve the lives of millions of gay men in China.
对于每一个 LGBT 人群来说，即使这个国家不允许你跟同性爱人结婚，但是你仍然要勇敢地去选择你自己的生活，你仍然应该拥有幸福生活的权利。
Ma's company Blue City runs an app and a website specifically for gay men. Blued is one of the biggest gay social networking apps in the world, with an estimated 30 million registered users. Unlike most other apps, Blued is more than just dating or hookups.
大家可以在我们这个软件里面找他自己的情感，然后可以阅读相关的内容，然后可以进行一些娱乐，比如玩游戏啊，比如看直播啊等等。
Back in 2000, when Ma studied at a police school in northern China, he realized he didn't feel like everyone else.
因为他们都找女朋友，然后谈恋爱，但是我对长得好看的同性的男生，我反而觉得对我更有吸引力。所以那个时候我就到互联网上去找这样的一些资料，然后希望能够告诉我自己，我到底是谁。互联网上所有的信息都是负面的，都是错的，就是说同性恋要电击疗法，要被治疗，然后要吃药等等。
After visiting some foreign websites with different attitudes to homosexuality, Ma created his own site for a Chinese audience, encouraging people that
他们也是正常的，他们不用自卑，然后也不用自杀。
Even though attitudes towards homosexuals are slowly changing in China, it's still a social stigma. The virtual world of Blued, where members can be open about their sexuality, is for most a striking contrast to their real lives. This is live streaming, a function added to Blued in late 2015, right as the internet craze was starting to take off in China. Many self-made stars like Jin make decent amounts of money by receiving audiences' virtual currencies and gifts.
我们不是彼此的初恋，初恋这种事儿多不靠谱啊！
For Kyle and Klaus, a couple who have come out, live streaming on Blued means something different.
其实我经常会收到很多粉丝的一些互动的留言，就是类似就是说你们让我们看到了同志情侣之间的一些希望啊，我看到这样的留言我是很欣慰。
The government's rules for acceptable content online may shift quickly in China, with LGBT material in a grey area. Many companies feel the chill of the recent internet crackdown. but Blue City still runs as usual. Ma has won the Chinese government's trust by helping with HIV prevention among gay men. A third of the company's staff are dedicated to screening pornographic and politically sensitive content.
我不太多的愿意去对抗，我更多的愿意去对话，去改变他们的想法。我觉得这个可能在中国来说是更有效的。
In the past 5 years, Blue City has grown from a team of 7 people to a promising business with about 250 staff. Ma said the company earned over $15 million last year, mainly through advertising and selling virtual currencies to live streaming audiences. Now the company is expanding overseas.
我希望吧，通过我们的努力 ，Blue D 能够成为全球第一家在美国纳斯达克或者是纽交所上市的这样的同质互联网公司。
All right, that was it. The first edition of Bloomberg's new series, Love Disrupted. And that does it for this edition of Bloomberg Technology. On Friday's show, Olaf Carlson-Wee from Polychain Capital, one of the biggest names in cryptocurrencies, will weigh in on Bitcoin's massive year. This is Bloomberg.